So I'm joined here today by Elexent's Chief Operations Officer, Olivier Jean, from CWIEME, for CWIEME's first interview as part of our ongoing intelligence series. For those that don't know of Elexent, they're a recently launched subsidiary of Renault, focused on electric vehicle charging, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about the company and its mission this morning. So thank you for joining me, Olivier. To begin, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and your experience in the automotive industry to date?
Yeah, sure, and thanks a lot, Liam, for the invitation and giving us the opportunity to get to know a little bit more about Elexent. Yeah, actually, I've got quite a long experience. Let's say it's not good for my age, but in the automotive business. Even though I'm not coming from the automotive business, I'm coming from the retail. I was store manager in hypermarket and for a couple of years, and then I moved to automotive business, mainly in operations, starting in the west of France. Then took some corporate functions in terms of standards and methods. I mean, globally to define for the network, our distribution network, some standards and methods, so that when you are entering a showroom, for instance, in France, and entering a showroom in Russia, you have the same brand experience everywhere. And then really go back to operations in some nice countries, such as the northeast of Africa during the Arab Spring, for instance. So I knew Libya with Gaddafi and without Gaddafi, Egypt with Mubarak, without Mubarak, with Morsi, and so on and so on. So quite erratic period, but very interesting in terms of dealing with partners over there, importers, and dealing with international flow. And then I moved. Do that for 3 years and did that for 3 years, and then I moved to Bulgaria, where I had the chance to be the general manager of our national sales company over there, also in charge of the other brand of the Alliance, which is Nissan. Very exciting, very a lot of things to do in terms of structuration and of the network and professionalism of the network. And very recently, and for 3 years, I've been the country operation director for Belgium and Luxembourg. So small countries in terms of size, but big ones for the Group Renault in terms of volumes, because I mean those countries are in the top 10 volume maker for the group worldwide. Mm-hmm. So over there, also different experience, much more in terms of organization, processes, and as well as network restructuration. So, voilà, and recently, I mean, very recently in July, I joined Elexent for this new challenge. But so you see, operations mainly and operations in the automotive field.
Yeah, so quite a long and very interesting and varied career in the automotive industry. So very interesting to hear about. And next, we will move on to talking about Elexent. Elexent is Groupe Renault's new subsidiary for professional vehicle charging solutions. Can you just tell us a little bit more about its mission? What is it all about?
Yeah, sure. Actually, you know, when you want to switch, let's say, to electric vehicles, there are still 3 major roadblocks for the adoption of the electric vehicles, and the first one was the price of the vehicles itself, and now we can see that more and more with all the manufacturers entering this business, the price of the vehicles is decreasing. Plus, there are a lot of incentives given by regions, governments, countries, whatever, that makes it more affordable. So these roadblocks tends to be not a problem anymore. The second point was really the battery capacity and the range. Which also those last years tends to be not an issue anymore. With you can easily have a range of 300-400 kilometers. So this is quite fine. But the third one is really the charging infrastructure for those vehicles. And this is where we really need to focus and to give solutions. Not that much for private customers, because let's say that it's quite easy when you are as a private customer eligible to an EV, so that you can charge at home on a simple socket, let's say, or on a small wall box. It's quite easy to install. But when it comes to professional customers, then it's another story. When you've got multiple sites, when you've got multiple charging stations, then you really need an expertise, and you need really to be very well guided in terms of what's going on in terms of rules, regulations, electric grids. It's a cooperation between different companies that will take care of your installation. So this is really a business that we take care for fleets. And the aim of that, it's really to switch, let's say, to electric and for the fleet procurement or the fleet managers to be able for them to go from ICE car park to an electric or a PHEV car park. This is really the aim that we are having. And of course, as we are talking about infrastructure, electric infrastructure, we are, let's say, totally neutral or agnostic in terms of brands that we are taking care of. Whether they are part of the Group Renault, it's fine, but it can be any brands or any car models that we can charge.
Okay, no, that's good. And is there a particular reason why Groupe Renault decided to create Elexent this year? Was there a particular market force or market driver? What spurred it on?
Actually, it's a combination of two factors, I will say. First, the Groupe Renault was one of the pioneers in terms of electric vehicle, and we started more than 10 years ago. So we have a long experience in this field of usage of big fleets running on the streets. So we know how it works, and also making a lot of experiments behind that, like Porto Santo Islands in Portugal or Belle-Île-en-Mer in France. So trying to make some let's say prototypes and development on that. And at the same time, what we can see, and it's quite interesting to see that this year and this particular year with COVID and all the troubles we went through, the global market in Europe, let's say, it's decreasing of nearly 30%, 28% decrease at the end of August. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, the EV market is at plus 46. So you can see that there is now a real trend, massive trend on EVs and PHEVs, even though the market share is still quite, let's say, not that high. It's around 4% of the global market, but it's increasing, and it's really a trend. So the combination of those both factors, the experience on one side and the proper moment, as you mentioned, because the market is there, but it was yes, I think the good moment to launch such a company.
No, I agree. I think expansion in electric vehicles and obviously the necessary expansions needed in infrastructure, someone needs to do it. And as you say, it is definitely in an uptrend at the moment. So it's good to hear that a company is taking the initiative and offering the solutions that people need to hopefully bring us into a electric vehicle future. Okay, so moving on to my next question. What kind of businesses or sectors are you targeting at Elexent? Is there a particular focus that you have, and what solutions do you actually offer for them?
Okay, well, actually, I can say that we are quite eclectic in our targeting customers, because basically we are addressing, any type of companies. Whether they are small and medium-sized company, from the plumber, butcher, or whatever, to large multinationals, as long as there are more than 2 charging stations that are at stake. This is the type of client that we are addressing actually. And how do we do that? We built, let's say, our strategy on 3 main pillars. Let's say the first one is really to understand and to really frame the project with the client. So it's really kind of, if you take a kind of a sales process, let's say, as I'm familiar of with the car business, it's really discovering the needs of the customer. So over there, you are framing the project. We are making audits, site visits, just to understand perfectly the customer needs. And then, of course, we help the customer to build his energy optimization, and we are costing the solution with him, and we are offering them or him the financing solution. So this is really the step one of our job, let's say. Then
okay.
Step two, it's really, let's say, the project management itself or the installation itself. So now we are really in the hard business, so it's the commissioning, the installing, gathering all the partners for the civil engineering work, the electrical work, and so on and so on. But also training and upskilling the teams of the clients to better use the facilities that we are bringing to them. And of course, we help them to obtain and we support them to obtain the potential subsidies or grants that they may add depending on the location. So really, this is the step two, really the installation, and then we've got a little bit, I will say. So we have the discovering of the needs, the sales and the delivery, let's say, and then the last point is really monitoring and operations. So it means the kind of the after sales or all the services that we can bring in addition to the installation. So could be the supervision, could be the maintenance hotline, the billing, the smart charging and load balancing, and so on and so on. And we are doing all of this also for the client. And at each of those three steps, but we are, let's say, the only window person for the customer, which makes it very easy and no dilution of responsibility for him.
No, it's very interesting. So you have sort of a 360-degree involvement in pretty much every step of the process. And I think what was particularly interesting that you mentioned there actually was around doing training and upskilling to help people be able to understand and use the technology. I think that's a very important step, which, as far as I'm aware, I might be wrong, but not many companies, I don't think, offer that sort of support to their customers. So I would commend that as an initiative. Okay, so Elexent obviously is quite a new company. So to make a difference, what is it that you bring to the table that differentiates you from your competition? Do you have specific expertise that you can bring to the table?
Yeah, actually, it's a good question, and in this field, there are numerous competitors, but each of them has his own, let's say, assets. For us, as I mentioned to you at the early stage, it's really important for us to really develop the adoption of the electric vehicles and the electric mobility. So we are really focusing on the total cost of ownership of, let's say, adopting electric vehicles or PHEV for our fleet customers. So really, this is really the point. We are not there, to say it a little bit more in a harsh way, we are not there to sell hardware. We are not there to sell softwares. Not linked to any brand in terms of energy, hardware, or software. We're just selecting the best ones in terms of openness and make them evolutive for the customer. But our main focus is really to focus on the total cost of ownership for our fleet customers, and we can do that. We can do that because of our, let's say, two-sided expertise, I will say. So the first one, of course, and with my background, I cannot deny it. And it's obvious the Group Renault expertise, and we know really in depth how the customers are using their electric vehicles, how they charge. We have plenty. I mean, we are with the Group Renault the first European leader in terms of electric vehicles since many years. So we have the experience of the vehicles, the experience of the battery and the chemistry of the battery, how a battery work, and how our professional clients are using their cars. So this is really we are basing our expertise on that. And then also we are relying on the expertise of the partners that we are choosing in each and single countries. Over there, we are selecting the best partners in terms of charging infrastructure. I mean, really professionals of grid management, of installations. They know perfectly the regulations. They speak the languages. They know the culture of each country. So they are really well connected with their local clients. And by merging and adding these two sides, the expertise of the car business on one side and the expertise and the local footprint on the of the charging infrastructure on the other side, we are able to bring a kind of a unique solution for the TCO of the fleet customers.
Okay, so you actually leverage the existing knowledge and the expertise within the regional markets.
Right, exactly.
So as we just talked about, you work with regional partners to ensure you can deliver the best service. At the moment, Elexent is based in France. Do you have plans then for further expansion into other regions?
Yes, definitely. Actually, well, it was quite, let's say, quite natural for us to start from France, both from the group or the holding part, because as you mentioned, we were created out of the Groupe Renault, and being based in France, it's easier for us at the holding side to get in touch with all the let's say the supporting capacities of the company, the R&D, the design. All the engineers are based in France when they are operating with the battery, for instance. So it's easier for us, and as well, France, in terms of purely on the commercial side, France is currently the biggest market in terms of EV. So it was quite natural that we start our activities from France. So we launched Elexent France at the end of June, and then definitely we are working in parallel to open new countries before the end of the year. So mainly it will be the biggest market in terms of EV, so such as Germany, the UK, Benelux, Spain, Italy. So we will have 6 new markets, let's say, up and running before the end of the year. I mean, all the contacts are there, and now it's just we are under a process of just officializing the creation of our subsidiaries, let's say, in those countries, and by creating, let's say, this group of Elexent and this group of expertise, as we mentioned just before, all of them coming from a different field of activities. Some are much more in the CPO side, some are more on the are coming from solar panel side or whatever. By combining this, taking the benchmark and the best of each of those partners, we are able really to build a global solution and make all the countries benefiting from the expertise of the others. So this is also the aim of, let's say, our structure at the holding side, apart from the strategy, but also sharing the best practice all over the countries.
Okay, perfect. So by the end of the year, expanding out and rolling out that best practice framework across all those countries.
Sure.
So as I just mentioned, and you've talked us through, you'll be expanding out into other countries. Are there any current or future projects that you can share some details with us?
Yeah, sure. I mean, actually, we've got plenty of projects up and running. Whether they are internal, let's say, to the Groupe Renault installations, or with small or medium-sized company, but I can give you an example which, for me, is quite striking and illustrating, let's say, this expertise that we are bringing on the market. And so in France, we have been asked and requested by an automotive distribution network of nearly 70 sites to conduct for them a study on what was the existing charging infrastructure that they've got. Are they? I mean, the charging ports are still running. Are they okay or not? And also to prepare them for the upcoming years and with the arrivals of all the EVs and PHEVs that are forecasted for their brands. So we first, and internally, they requested to have a kind of expression of needs from their dealers, and it was quite interesting to get this first picture where you had a lot of requests for big charging station. I mean, with high power, more than 22 kilowatts, and quite everywhere. So basically, the sales manager was requesting some charging points. The after sales was requesting some. The guys from renting was requesting some, and so on and so on. And all of that.
So we just talked about your expansion plans. So there are current or future projects at Elexent that you can share some more details with us.
Yes, sure. Even if we've got quite a lot of projects up and running. I mean, from small size project to quite big ones, including some internal to the Renault Group. Maybe I will take an example of one which is quite striking and I will say explaining quite well where we can have an expertise on the charging infrastructure. So during the summer, we have been requested by a group of an automotive group of dealers or dealership representing 70 sites in France to conduct a survey for them to know exactly what was the existing park of their charging station and how we can prepare them for the future arrival of EVs and PHEVs in the coming years. And what was interesting to notice is that when you ask the people need to cover the future needs, they came up with nearly 800 additional points to be added with a high power. And when we review this through the Elexent teams, I mean, going side by side, conducting the survey, really going into the details of the usage and optimizing all the flows and the power that we can optimize also through load balancing and so on. But we come up with only a proposal of 400 charging points, so kind of diminution of 40% of the initial request, which is huge, and with an investment which is also reduced up to 40%. So from an initial needs expressed by the client of 800 charging points, we came up with 400 something. So just to say exactly what we mentioned, we are not there to make them invest for only the purpose of investment, but we are really there to understand the needs and to make it as smooth as possible and as optimized as possible for them to develop the fleet cells and the electric fleet cells. That's really a good example, I think, that we have lived during the summer.
Oh, no, thank you for that. Yeah, I agree. That's an interesting example and also shows how that lack of understanding can then have impacts on companies unless they do seek the right help. So it's a very good way to close this off. So I think that's all of my questions for today. So thank you again, Olivier, for your time and answering all my questions that I've thrown at you today. I'm excited to see what will come from Elexent in the future. And for those of you at home, you'll be able to watch this and our other upcoming interviews on the CWIEME website and also as part of the latest CWIEME Intelligence email. So make sure that you're subscribed, which should be arriving in your inboxes on October 23rd. So thank you again, Olivier.
You're welcome.
And look forward to seeing what you and the rest of the team will be doing in the future.
Sure. Thanks, Liam.